Are you ready for this? Dun, dun.
Ooh, am I so ready for this?
Dun, 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 dun. Thank you for turning the countdown back on.
You're welcome.
I really miss it when it's not there.
Literally the least I could do. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fireside Chat with your host, Hank and Abby.
You know, can I just say something that one of my all-time favorite holidays is coming up, and that's Banned Books Week. And I've already bought myself a series of new t-shirts to celebrate Banned Book Week. And
when is Banned Book Week, by the way?
It's in October. It's like the first week in October.
I never know until I see people on Facebook posting it.
October 5th. But I'm so excited because this one t-shirt I bought literally says literacy and justice for all. Isn't that awesome?
That is. I love that so much.
I also got one that says, what's more punk than the public library?
I dig that. I dig that.
Reading them, NJ. We're celebrating reading them. So.
Yeah, we're not celebrating banning anything.
Banned.
We're not celebrating banning anything. But you know what we are celebrating today? Somebody finished their first draft over the weekend.
First YA, baby.
That's so exciting. So you had given yourself a deadline for yesterday, and you landed it yesterday. You know, I looked over on the coffee table at my phone late yesterday afternoon, and I had a text from Abby, and I was like, what? Abby finished her first draft, and you were so excited. And I was late because I never checked my phone on the weekends. And I was like, go Abby. That's so awesome.
I finished it on deadline.
And you came in a little higher than you had given yourself the.
That's what I was going to say. On Saturday, I threw myself a curveball and I added 2 chapters to my outline. And I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? I was going to hit my deadline. I was going to reach the end. I squeezed 2 more chapters in there, and I did it. I made it happen. I wrote 4,400 words yesterday to make it happen.
Which is superhuman almost.
I mean, for me, it is. So.
Okay. So you added 2 chapters. Like, let's just slow down for a minute and just walk through this process. Like what was the decision process that let you know, okay, I need 2 more chapters? Was like
it needed time to breathe. The resolution between the climax of the story and her processing what was happening and getting to the end, it was too rushed. And I could just feel it. It was too rushed.
You needed to breathe more during the denouement?
Like a fine wine. I say this like this. It's actually my old coffee cup. There's nothing in it.
Like a fine seltzer water, blackberry lemonade. Just have to let that sucker breathe a little.
Good one, baby. Yeah. So I was so stoked about it, though. Anyway, and I think it's in good shape. There's still work to be done, but all the work that needs to be done has already been set up, if that makes sense. Because not to advocate for the outline, but you and I have been on a kick lately where we're like, maybe they're onto something with this whole outlining thing. I think because I had worked out so many of the problems before I started writing, but even with the addition of the 2 chapters, which I didn't know I was going to need, I got to the end and I realized the pieces that it was missing were actually already laid out and planned. So it was not going to involve tearing it up and rewriting pieces.
That's what I was going to ask you, is realizing that you needed room to breathe did not alter your plan, did it? It just, that was information that was added within your plan. Yes. Like it didn't alter your story,
No, not
You,
at
you
all.
already had it laid out. You just realized that this needed to be maybe a bigger piece or a more in-depth character study, maybe at the end to really explore what happened with your character. Like,
So there are a couple of character pieces that I think I'm kind of missing now that I get. And I mean, we're here talking about characters today, and this is great because I have to make a confession, and it's I actually really love a good flat character.
yeah,
Like some of my favorite characters are flat characters. And I wrote a pretty great flat character in this book. And I'm like super stoked about it. And so you like everybody thinks that all the characters in your story have to be round characters. They do not. Even your main characters can be kind of flat. And I kind of love a good flat character.
which ironically or unironically is kind of what we're talking about today. But this is a fireside chat, so we're not beholden to an outline for the show. But I thought this was for you to talk about your accomplishment over the weekend was a great
Intro.
intro, or maybe even the spine for this show, because you're in the thick of it. You are.
So are you, because where are you in the drafting process of your super secret, not so secret literary novel from the 80s?
I'm almost finished with it. I am with a first draft, and it's so funny because was it Thursday or Friday last week? I lose track of the days. Joe from Twig, our one of our partners in crime, said that he had made some changes to Twig and wanted you and I to kick the tires on a little bit. So I took this rough draft and uploaded, and Twig pointed out some things that I already knew, but it was good to see kind of confirmation that these were some weak spots in the story. But I had already, like, for instance, it's very much a character study. There's not a lot of plot that happens in this book. It's very much internal struggle, as a coming of age story after the age has come. It's definitely a reflection on this period, this coming of age period in this guy's life. But he's old enough now that when he reflects back, he sees things that were going on at the time that he didn't have the wherewithal or the maturity to understand at the time. And so I knew for a fact that some of these characters were so cliche, and some of the events that I had set up were very cliche. But I kind of knew that, and then having this editor point that out to me just kind of like gave me the ammo I need to go in and restructure things that I already know need to be restructured.
That was what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Like, you can have a cliched character, but sometimes if you lean into that cliche and you own it, you can make it so fun.
Yes.
But it's got to be the right kind of story for that.
It does.
And so I didn't know where yours fell on that spectrum of, do you want it to be cliched or not? Tongue-in-cheek cliche,
A bit, yes. Like,
yeah.
it very much owns its tropes. But I don't want it to read like a retelling of The Body, which a Stephen King story that Stand By Me, the film, came from. It shares a lot with, like, the three boys that are kind of in that weird in between stage where they're not little kids anymore, but they're not, they haven't really fully hit puberty and become young men yet. They're in that weird place where you've got freedom, at the same time you don't know anything, so so a lot of like, I didn't pave new territory by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very much
really
yeah, and it's very much a character study, so because I love to write a good navel gaze. So
Well, I have to say that I was really proud because you're speaking of Twig and you brought it up. So the first thing I did was, Joe gave me a coupon. So I put my finished draft into Twig to see what it had to say. And it talked about some of my characters. And it talked about one of the characters that I was the most proud of. But it said, hold on, I feel like I should just read it out loud. So let me see if I can pull it up. And keep me on the screen because I don't want to lose my tab. If I lose my tab, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. Okay. So here we go. One of the things it said I did well was, okay, Grandma May is the grandmother. Tammy is the mother. And the family dynamics. Says you've written supporting characters with real interior lives, and that is harder than it looks. Grandma May is an anchor, but she has raccoon logic. So she's got this whole theory about raccoons that she goes into at one point in the book. She's got a frozen cookie dough strategy. She's got a boo-boo bunny in her freezer, right? She feels like a real person, not just a plot device. And the kitchen scene in chapter 28, where Tammy, the mom, reveals the story of the Subaru and her fight with her dad, is the manuscript's most emotionally mature moment. It reframes the entire mother-daughter dynamic, not just mother-daughter as in the main character and the mother, but also the mother and Grandma May, in a single scene, and it earns the reconciliation that follows. And then it kind of goes on, but it says these relationships give the novel an emotional depth that elevates it well beyond a standard YA rom-com. And I was really, really stinking proud of that.
Yeah.
Because I was basing the Grandma May on a real character. Now, she is a flat character, and that's what I know we're here to talk about right now.
Yeah.
It's like round characters, flat characters, foils. Now, flat character is just a character that doesn't ever really change, right? I mean, you don't get a ton of backstory necessarily. Like you might get a little, like in my reconciliation scene at the end, you see a little bit about, what makes them who they are. But, the mom, the grandma, they're just steady but they're steady, but they're still real people. And they're real people because Grandma May is actually my mother. My mother's name is Ella May. And she is the grandma extraordinaire that everybody relies on. And so I tried to make this character as close to my mom as possible to make her real. So she felt alive. She didn't just feel like a caricature that I had, written and sketched in to fill a hole in the manuscript. If that makes any sense.
So we've beat around it a little bit. What is the difference? And I have some definitions of these, but in your mind, what's the difference in a round character, a flat character, and a foil?
Okay. So for me, a round character is someone who has a lot of depth and backstory, but also has a really big emotional arc. So if you think about it, if you have an emotional arc and you think of an arc as in the mathematical term of, a curved line.
Sure.
Right? That is the opposite of flat. So you have this big emotional arc. A flat character to me is one who's just kind of steady and never changing.
Yeah.
Now, you can have a flat character with a flat arc. And like, if we're getting super technical, a flat arc means the world around them changes, not the character themselves. But you can have a relatively flat main character who doesn't really change, right? Like I would argue, see, I already pulled out my books to show. Timmy Failure is one of my all-time favorite characters. Now, if you've seen the movie, I'm going to go ahead and say this. They gave him an arc in the movie. So Disney changed the story, gave him an arc, gave him a backstory, gave him everything. It actually makes for a beautiful movie. I mean, they did it, they changed it, they did it well. So
Okay.
hats off to Disney, right?
Right.
The freaking story, however, is just hilarious. And he is just stubborn, and he's stubborn from page 1, and he is still stubborn on the last page of the book, and he has learned nothing, and he doesn't care. And I so dearly love that.
Right.
So, to me, those are my 2 definitions.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, an English teacher might be marking me off on some of it, but I don't care.
Well, no, I think that's a great definition, and I want to dig into some of that more in just a minute. But then we also have the foil, and the definition for foil I have is a character who exists to make the reader see the protagonist more clearly by being different in some specific way. Watson to Sherlock.
Yeah. Hermione to Harry.
Samwise to Frodo, Hermione to Harry. The contrast is the point.
Yeah.
A flat character, some examples of a flat character, and one that I use all the time is Jack Reacher from popular fiction, because Reacher is the same character in every book. He shows up with his toothbrush in his back pocket, a little bit of cash, and there's some corruption that, in this little town that he hitchhiked to, and he just kicks butt for 400 pages. And then on page 399, he puts his toothbrush in his back pocket and he starts hitchhiking to the next town. Boom. That's it. He never grows. He never changes. Like he has setbacks, obviously. And there are, certain accomplishments that happen, but they don't fundamentally change him. Now, like your example in the Amazon Prime show based on Reacher, they explore some of his backstory, and they bring some of that in, and you start seeing like some of why he is the way he is. Doesn't necessarily live in the books. You do get glimpses into his backstory, but
good television and good books are different.
Different.
TV gets away with different things, and books get away with different things.
Yes.
I mean, this is a great example. Another great example is I was writing it was a rom-com outline for adults. It was not for kids or YA or whatever it was. And so my friend Michelle Hazen came through my outline, and she said, "You can't do this." And I'm like, "Do what?" She said, "You can't have your main love interest kiss someone else on the page and then go after the second love interest, right?" I said, "Well, why can't you?" I was like, "It happens all the time." And I pointed out like 3 different movies that it happened in. She goes, "That's a movie. Movies get away with something different." And that was the first time I had ever really thought about it.
Right.
So sometimes movies make great examples, right? We can see very clearly some of these things that we're trying to do in books, but sometimes movies get away with more. Sometimes they get away with less. Depends on what we're talking about. But the flat character that I thought you were going to mention at first because your book club was, Mr. Collins from Pride and Prejudice. I freaking love him. I love him so much that sometimes my oldest daughter, Beatrix, and we carry out entire text threads only using stickers we've made of Mr. Collins.
That is so funny. So I love that so much. Here, I've got some notes that I made myself. Just because a character doesn't change doesn't mean they don't try to change. Mm-hmm. This is something that I think some people misunderstand about flat character arcs is that, um, and I'm trying to think of a good example, and I'm just totally
This,
blanking.
I tell you,
Okay.
you think he's changing, you think he's changing, you think he's going to get it, you think he's coming around, and then he just kind of loops right back to where he started, and he's just the same old stinking stubborn character as
Yeah.
he began the book. And as an adult, I'm sure that's infuriating, but I feel like kids understand it a little bit more if you think about it.
So, one example that I'm thinking of is Dawn and I have been rewatching Downton Abbey from the beginning. Are you?
Beatrix is.
Look at you. Well, we started when we were in Texas with my daughter Jessie, and we started watching the first bit of season one. And she had watched it as she was a teenager coming up, but it had kind of all washed away, you know. And so we started rewatching it. So we picked up from where we left it with Jessie when we got home, and we've been watching. Mr. Molesley
Yeah.
is a great flat character because he almost never changes through the show, except for the final season. He changes jobs. I think he becomes a school teacher. I I don't fully remember. That's why I'm rewatching it. But so many times he tries something and fails and
Mhm.
just comes right back to where he was. And then a couple episodes later, he'll try something, fail, come right back to where he was. And so, to me, a flat character doesn't mean they never try. They just never kind of break out of the rut that they're in. They try things, they fail. And it just and you can build character tension that way without actually having to grow your character. Now, you could say that, trying and failing brings a sort of personal growth all on its own.
Mhm.
That you can argue that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but
So some of my other favorite characters, they actually kind of walk a gray line for me.
yeah.
So now, like, again, some teacher or the internet or somebody is probably going to like slap my hands and say, I disagree with you. Totally fine. But characters like Ramona Quimby or Junie B. Jones, right? They learn small lessons like
Right.
throughout the course of these books, but they still remain their same sort of stubborn, strong-willed little kid selves. Like you
Right.
don't really see them changing who they are. They just learn a small lesson over the course of those 80 pages, right?
So I'm gonna inject this into what you're saying, but as you were saying that, I thought Charlie Brown and Lucy,
Yep.
same characters. Dennis the Menace
Oh my
never learns from himself. Um, so many examples. So is that a hallmark of the type of literature, the uh, the the reading audience, um, middle grade or lower, is that a hallmark of that type of book, is that you don't expect big character changes? Because if you're writing to second, third, fourth graders, do they really expect these big life lessons from these characters?
They can sniff out an adult trying to teach them a lesson in a
That
freaking heartbeat.
Yes, and you just summed up what I was trying to say right there, because so because of that, do you avoid those big changes that we think of as meaningful growth, but they would sniff out as being, this is just an old lady, trying to put something on me.
So, yes and no. I think there are so many things going on in children's literature that we don't really give, I think, kid lit authors credit for tackling. But part of that is, yeah, you have to teach kids a lesson without being preachy, right? Which you can do by just giving them little bits at a time, right? But two, many of these series have been going on for years. Now, how can you be like Barbara Parks and write what 40 or 50 books
Yeah.
about Junie B. Jones if you're teaching some big, giant freaking life lesson every single time. You have to stair step, you know, to the ultimate goal, which is
Right.
growing up, making friends, you know, learning, whatever the ultimate goal of Junie B. Jones was. I don't know. I almost didn't read Junie B. Jones to my kids because I read the stupid, smelly school bus. And I was about halfway through this book, and I am like, what in the hell am I teaching my children? I hated it the first time I read it. And then but my kids loved it. Absolutely loved it. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, there might be something to, and then I read Magic Tree House, and I was like, okay, let's go back to Junie B. Jones because this is. So I don't know. I mean, it's really hard because if you were to have a round character, every character in your book was a round character, would that not be the longest ASS book that you've ever read in your life? Because everybody was making a change and everybody was going through something and I mean, how would you ever get to the heart of the story when every single character that is on the page is learning some giant life lesson?
Right. Exactly. And so, and that kind of proves the usefulness of the foil. Sometimes they are characters that lift up your protagonist and are there to support, but sometimes they're the exact opposite for that reason. Like a foil doesn't have to mean mustache twirling, villain antagonist. Sometimes it can be.
But like most of our examples, we're all on the quote same team. Harry and Hermione, same team. Watson and Sherlock, same team.
Yeah. You could argue that the Joker and Batman is a perfect foil to Batman because he is the embodiment of everything that Batman is not. So his presence kind of proves, Batman's morality or whatever, and but sometimes Hermione is a better foil for the opposite reason. It's not that she is proving that his morality is, sometimes her supporting him growing into that morality is a better use of page
or
space.
She's just going about it slightly differently.
Or, yeah. Interesting. So in the book that you just finished, how did you think about your characters? I don't know an awful lot about this book. I know some things that you've told me, but are you ready because you finished the first draft? Are you ready to talk about some of the characters and the setup? Like, do you have a defined protagonist that is what we would expect? And what is his or her their supporting cast like? And how did you think about building that supporting cast in terms of are they a supporting cast? Do they hold up the protagonist? Are they or are they there to be a dark reflection of the protagonist? How did you think about the setting?
As we're talking about this, I realized I do think I kind of wrote a foil into the story without. So it's a rom-com. So I have your typical, there's your female love interest in this one and a male love interest. It's a YA, so they're in high school. This one takes place in a theater department at a small high school in a fictional town in South Carolina. And so the main character has actually come from LA. She's trying to escape her mother, who grew up in South Carolina but moved to LA and has been a Hollywood hopeful for many, many years. She goes to auditions. She has an agent, but she's never quite landed a gig. She's also that stereotype where she works at a diner as a waitress because I couldn't resist, right? But she as Castleberry. As she's a waitress at the diner, that's how she practices all of her parts, because every day she's got a different name tag that she puts on. She pretends like she's a different persona and goes in and acts like that person for the
I
day.
love that detail, by the way.
Thank you. I thought that was really funny. But Mom lands a lead in a reality television show all about Hollywood hopefuls, and she's got the cringiest of all of the stereotypes, which is the 40-something actress that's wanted her whole life to be a star and never landed a single gig. So the young girl, Eleanor, the main character, who doesn't want anything to do with acting because she's seen it bring her mother nothing but heartache. And she says at the beginning of the book, my mom never talks about it, but I see her mascara has run and I know she got a call from her agent.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, choked up. I'm like, ah. So she
such a delicious little detail.
She doesn't want that. So when her mom lands this super cringy role and it's reality television, and she's like, my mom is going to be followed 24/7 by these cameras. Peace out, dude. I'm going to live with grandma.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how I get her into the situation. It's new girl is one of the tropes. Boy next door is another trope, that sort of thing. So I'm trying to set it all up without like having to dive into a ton of backstory. Like her dad's not there. Her dad never gets mentioned in the story, except I think one line somewhere along the way. Right. I mean, like I tried not to make a big deal out of the pieces I didn't need in order to tell my story.
Yes. Yes.
And I didn't need that piece to tell my story. So anyway, I set the whole thing up. And what I was really trying to do with every character that I wrote, I usually start with a literary character that I sort of base it off of. This time I started with people I knew in real life. It was the first time I had done that. So my mom was the grandmother. My daughter's the main character. I've pulled from some of her friends. I've pulled from some of my friends. I've pulled from myself. And I've tried to weave all these details in to make them real, even the characters that are flat.
Okay, can we have a sidebar conversation? I don't want you to lose your thought process there, but when you just said that, it made me think. Kind of one of the most trite questions that writers get all the time, and everybody hates it, is, so did you base this character on yourself? And the answer to that always is yes.
Yeah,
everything I write is a piece of me,
yeah.
but it's also a piece of my next door neighbor. It's a piece of my 8th grade English teacher. I mean, it's all, like, when you're a writer, amalgamations are what you trade in. And is it a piece of you? Yes. Is it a piece of your uncle? Yes. Is it so how do you, when you're harvesting, that's such a creepy word to use, people in your real life that become these characters, do you worry too much about, is this going to be too on the nose? Is this going to be, and should I ever tell them because they're really going to be offended that I took this character that is based on them?
I love that you're asking this.
Okay.
Because I've already got 2 more YA rom-coms laid out. And one of them is based on, it was actually a video that Sean sent me of a guy talking about when he was in high school, and they just wanted somebody to buy them pizza. And they found this loophole at school that if you started a club, you got like $100 in like operations money from the school. Every club did. So they started a club where the only point of it was that they wanted to buy themselves pizza, but they got called out, and the superintendent loved the idea behind their club so much they had to come and give a presentation, right? So anyway, I loved the idea of that. I'm like, I know the exact 2 students who would have done that when I was teaching high school. And so I'm like, I am going to work that idea into a rom-com. And I've already kind of got it all laid out in my head. But I'm like, those two, I said, Sean, I'm even giving them the same freaking names because in my head, that's exactly, I know exactly the two students that would have done that. And Sean's like, you can't do that. I said, you watch, because I'm going to call Andy Craig and ask him if he cares that I use his name.
And as long as you don't add a detail that like Andy Craig smelled of cheese. You're like, I mean, unless Andy did, I don't know Andy Craig,
But the
but you know,
truth is,
yeah,
even if I write Andy Craig,
yeah,
I'm writing the Andy Craig as I remember him. I'm giving
right,
him the thoughts that I imagine he was thinking when he was in high school.
right.
I mean, I might use some of his ridiculous stunts in the story, like the
As you
time he
should.
clogged up all the toilets with toilet paper for absolutely no reason and hid it from everyone in the school except for me. And I was like, why are you giving me this responsibility? I feel like I have to tell on you now, but you are my favorite student. So, I'm still interjecting what I imagine was going on. So these characters are based loosely on these people, but they are on my memories of these people.
Yeah,
So, I mean, even my mom, who I feel like I probably know better than I know anyone on earth.
yeah,
I worked her into this, but I imagine, what would she do or say in this situation? And
right,
that's what I put in there. But she's flat again, not because my mom herself isn't a round character, but because the
right.
story itself did not call for Grandma May to have some elaborate freaking backstory.
Right,
The story called for Grandma May to be there and be Eleanor's backup.
right,
And
right.
I'm pretty sure my mom's going to be okay with that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Do you remember where we were before I
no,
sidetracked you with that?
that's
I
okay.
don't
Let's
either.
just keep rolling. I like
But
it.
but one thing that also you when you were describing the mom's
Mhm.
backstory and how it affected your protagonist response to those things and how she goes to live with grandma and or wants to however you took the story. I immediately started thinking about the mom as you were describing that, like that. If I were writing that, I would be tempted to like start writing her story because she's such a fascinating character. So when you're coming up with this supporting cast of characters who are round and have um, these amazing lives that affect your protagonist, how do you prevent them from taking over the story? Because I've written books before and I come up with a side character that I first intend for them to affect the protagonist and trigger some sort of adventure or whatever. And I find out that this other crazy, quirky character is amazing, and I just want to go write their story. And I have done that.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it works. Sometimes you think they're fascinating, you write 2 or 3 chapters and they kind of fizzle out because they were just fun, but you hadn't really given them
Enough
enough
to work with.
work to be a story. They're just a fun addition to a story.
I
So,
mean, I can't tell you how many secondary characters I've liked more
yes.
than my main character. That tends to be, I think, what happens to me. This is really the first time that I wrote a main character that I actually just loved.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've run away with too many of them too. I mean, that's just, and the more like myself a secondary character is, the more likely I am to run away with it. So, because I know that character better. And to me, if you find yourself really focused in on those secondary characters and wanting to let them run away with you,
Yeah.
It's because there's something in your main character that you haven't really uncovered yet. And it's probably that round piece. Not that every main character has to be round. I mean, not to muddy that waters, but so I was looking it up to see, besides, because this was the only one I could think of really that was a main character that was like super, super flat.
Yeah.
You know, even Jeannie B. Jones and Ramona Quimby, they've got tiny little, you know, stair step arcs. They're not like this, but they're kind of like this. They're inching their way like inchworms towards the goal. But Marty McFly was the one that the internet told me was a flat main character. Let's break that one down. Marty McFly.
Interesting. Marty. So let me think about this. So Marty, in the initial movie, he goes back 30 years to 1955.
His whole goal is to get his parents back together and get home.
Yeah, so that he can go back to his normal life.
Yep.
And in 1955, he's basically the same character he was in 1985.
And what does he learn when he goes back?
Nothing. He takes his girlfriend to the camping trip. He literally was just trying to get his girlfriend to go camping with him. He's got a new truck, and dad is more successful.
Biff is waxing it.
Yeah. So his dad, mom, Biff, and his two siblings, they all change, and Mayor Goldie Wilson.
He learns not
to mess with time. Okay, I'll give you that, NJ. I'll give you that. But yeah, I mean, he's still kind of the lovable slacker.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I've never thought about that, but you're right.
Wow. I thought that was a really good example. I was like, oh.
Yeah, and sometimes I pretend that the other two movies don't exist.
I kind of liked the one with the Wild West, though. I'm not.
Yeah, the third one. Yeah,
I didn't like the second one.
Yeah, the second one was well, and they took too much liberty with the future that is now our past, and it just didn't turn out well. Yeah, that's these are problems you have with going to the future instead of just going back to the past.
Side note, on whatever day it was that he went to in the future, that day has come and gone.
You're right.
And so, I have a friend who's very artsy fartsy, but like theatrical artsy fartsy.
Yeah.
And on that day, he wore the orange vest. I mean, he had the entire Marty McFly outfit on. He wore it all day. It was brilliant.
Did he have the dumb multicolor hat?
He had the whole thing. I don't know where he came up. He must have been sitting on that outfit for a really long time now.
Oh, yeah. I love that so much.
So good.
October
3rd. Wait, 2105.
No, it wasn't that
far.
There was
another one.
It was 2000. Well, if in the original he went from 1985 to 1955. So what's 30 years forward from 85? 95, 05, 15, 2015?
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah.
Oh, Rob says, sorry, 2015. Yeah.
Come on, Rob. Okay, so because our next workshop coming up is about round, flat foil characters, I've got just a couple of things to help you think about it. Think of a novel that you've read more than 5 years ago, so not something fresh on your mind. Name a character from it who was not the main character, someone you still remember. And then think about what you remember about them.
Ooh, this is really good.
Yeah. And I've got a list of questions. I'll post these in Dabble U later. But is there anybody that comes to mind for you, Abby? And this is not to put folks on these are just some things to think about when you're making characters.
Somebody who is not the main character, but I had to have read the book over 5 years ago. Some of it I feel like it would be cheating.
So here's why I think this exercise works. They'll come usually when you ask people this, they'll come back with one thing,
Yeah.
one trait, one line, one gesture, a limp, a laugh, a phrase they always said. I
Nice.
love I love to write um, characters with these weird um, colloquial things. Like when you live in a part of the country that I live in, people have these off the wall metaphors, sayings that they come up with, and I love to harvest those things. I have a document where I just like collect. Um, like I had an uncle who, anytime someone would start crying, he'd say, "Well, she done took to squalling now."
I've heard that one before.
Yes, and little things like that. And so listen for single trait answers when you have 5 or 6. Um, say almost every one of you gave me one thing, not a biography, but one thing. So that's one thing to think about. So when you're creating characters, think of a memorable one thing for this side character.
Okay, so I was gonna say it weirdly in the Ramona Quimby series, which it's been more than 5 years since I've read any of those.
Yeah.
Or sorry, Junie B. Jones, not Ramona.
Okay.
But in Junie B. Jones, she calls her teacher Mrs. She doesn't call her by her name. She just calls her Mrs. because she can't remember her name. And here's the funny thing. So really, that's Junie's interpretation of her that makes it memorable because she can't remember her name.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm saying that is my first grade niece just started school, a week and a half ago. They went back to school and she cannot remember her teacher's name for the life of her. And so that's real. Like that's a real.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's my little piece that I'm like, oh, that was a great, Barbara Park's part.
Here's another fun one. If your protagonist did not come home tonight, who in your book notices first? Who notices second? Who does not notice at all?
Ooh. Well, mine's in high school, so everybody's probably going to notice.
Probably, yeah. About the time that they take attendance, about 8:05. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So, okay. That doesn't necessarily apply to you unless it's summer vacation.
Ooh, even then, you expect the kids to come home. I mean,
yeah. So
Grandma May is going to notice.
Right. Right. Let's see. Now, pick the supporting character with the most page time in your book. Now delete them. Not their scenes, just them. What breaks because they are missing?
See, Grandma May would be that one too. Also, I have a secondary character that I really like. His name is Trip.
Yeah.
Trip with 2 P's. And he's like the class clown. And I really love a good class clown. Even when I was teaching, I had a soft spot for the class clowns, which was Andy Craig. So
naturally. Here's another fun one. Name a character in your book who has never once been in a scene that was not about your protagonist. Now tell me what that character did last Tuesday. Not in the book, but in their life.
Ooh, well, when you write in first person and you only have one POV, you don't really have a secondary character that's in any scenes that your protagonist is not in, right?
So why this exercise works, it's uncomfortable and specific, which is the whole point. Nearly everybody has one, and the second question is where the writer feels the difference between a person is and their function. So is this an actual character that you're writing, or do they just serve to
A
prop
purpose.
up the story or the protagonist. And this just helps you to, and if you if you can't um if you can't decide that this person is a real character who has a real life off the page and you're looking for stuff to cut, this is where
That's
if you can determine that that you're perfectly fine not knowing that this character has a life, they're free to cut.
I can't think of any that I have worked into this novel because there's part of me that thinks this little town of Millbrook, South Carolina, I'm going to take a page out of your book, Hank, and I'm
Yeah.
going to set all my YA novels there, to the point where not only am I going to set my next couple of YA novels there, I've got an MG series of 6 novels that I planned out previously that is also in Millbrook. And the theater teacher in this book, in my head, she's dating the media teacher from the middle school. Like,
let me ask you a question about that. Why Millbrook? Why did you decide that's the place to write?
So it's so funny that I've never lived in South Carolina.
Okay.
I don't have a ton of like connection to South Carolina. North Carolina, yes. Georgia, yes. Tennessee, yes. Florida, yes. Alabama, yes. I have connections to all of those places. And what do I pick, Hank? The one southeastern state that I have zero connection with. But I think that's why I picked it was I don't have any preconceived notions about what is going to happen there or what life is there, what life there is like. And the funny thing is someone asked me in the same thread as like my friend, I want to say my friend Travis was in this thread too. So I went to high school with the guy who wrote the screenplay for Pacific Rim. He also wrote the television show Carnival Row. We went to high school together. His very first movie that he ever shot, he premiered in my basement. So anyway, someone asked us, why don't any of you guys write about Cleveland, Tennessee, which is where we went to high school?
Yeah.
And we were both like, well, what's the fun in that? It's not inspiring to us.
Yeah.
We can take pieces of Cleveland and growing up there and we insert them in other things, but I don't want to write. And I've wondered before, Carl Hyacin, I said his last name, right?
Yeah.
Writes about Florida and he does it so beautifully. But nothing I ever think about is set here, like outside my back window. I don't know.
That's me. When my little town of Weston that I write a lot of stories in is up in the Mississippi Delta, right off of the river north of Vicksburg, which is the opposite side of the state that I live in. I live in East Central Mississippi, where we are surrounded by giant pine trees and oak trees and magnolia trees, and you cannot see the horizon because trees are everywhere. And the Delta has almost no trees. It's just flat land, and there are cotton fields and soybean fields as far as the eye can see. And I don't like that part. I don't like that. I love where I live because I love being surrounded by woods and stuff. And that where Weston is nothing like that. But it's near the crossroads, and there are, little weird things, and it's close enough culturally to where I'm from that I can borrow a lot. And I've always wanted to write a story set where I live or close by, maybe make another little town close by, because I would love to bring in the geography and stuff that I love so much. And it just never comes out that way. It just doesn't.
So I wonder if anybody else here feels like this. Does anybody else do it the way we do it? Or do you set in something familiar? I mean, the fantasy writers, obviously, they're probably in a totally made up world, but there might be details that they pull in. Rob says, Summerfield, my YA town, is located not far from Mellonville, but where these two locations are yet is not certain. And NJ never does familiar.
Interesting. That's and that really and so and this is another show that we need to talk about. This is setting as character. Because you inherit a lot of stuff with your setting. And we do need to talk about that sometime soon, but not today. I'll leave you with one more question because we are quickly running up on time. And this is about foil characters. Think about your protagonist. Which character in your book makes your protagonist easiest to see? Not who helps them, who makes us understand your protagonist. Do you have a character like that where just their existence helps you understand? And from just what I've heard, the mom definitely helps you understand your protagonist, her reaction to her mom and seeing.
I mean, maybe her mom, but there's also a girl, her name is Lula, short for Tallulah, because I feel like that's a real Southern name like you would find in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Tallulah, just the hula, right? But that's not South Carolina. But Lula wants the same thing that Eleanor's mom wants, which is she wants to be an actress. She's not necessarily Hollywood bound, but she's more Broadway bound, right? But she wants the same thing as Eleanor's mom, and she thinks that's what Eleanor wants too, and that Eleanor is her rival when Eleanor doesn't want that. And she can't seem to convince anyone in Millbrook, South Carolina, that she is not her mother, which is part of the fun of the story, So I've got the mom, but then I also have sort of a mirror character that is her contemporary at school. So awesome.
Well, folks, watch for the next workshop that we're going to drop about the characters in your book that are not protagonists. Do they have round arcs, flat arcs, or do they serve the purpose of the foil? And we're going to talk all about it. Abby, thanks as always for talking these things out with me.
Yeah, this has been a fun one. So thanks everybody for coming. And I think they're going to be looking in the community for your assignment.
Yes, I'm going to post. I'm going to make a post in the community this afternoon where I'll put these things for you to be thinking about. Thanks for joining us, y'all.
Peace out, everybody.